I'm Gabriel, Epsi-Sanchis. I'm at Saldru, a researcher and a PhD candidate at the UCT as well. And I'll be speaking about the effect of household pension loss on working age members' employment outcomes, very briefly. So the government old age pension in South Africa is currently 2,180 Rand per month, and anyone 60 or over, citizen or resident in South Africa, is eligible to receive it. There are some means tests, but they're seldom enforced. And basically, this is a very significant form of welfare in South Africa. As summarized by Abel 2019, the potential effects of the pension on other household members' labor supply are motivated by the high level of the pension relative to median per capita household income, the prevalence of multi-generation households, and well-documented sharing of grant income within households. So basically, the pension is a large amount. We know that working age adults are living with pensioners and that that pension income is likely to be going to them, some of the pension income. And then most labor supply or search-based labor market models would predict a negative correlation between non-employment income and employment outcomes, basically by raising the reservation wage and decreasing search intensity. But the high cost of job search and capital required for own account work could mean that there's a positive correlation between these. So there's some ambiguity in what you would expect the effect to be. So in South Africa, a handful of studies have looked at the effect of the pension on working age adults' employment outcomes. I list them there. And it's a very difficult question to study due to the endogeneity of pension take-up. And also the predictability of its receipt. You pretty much know when you're going to receive it when you turn 60, around there. Some have observed a positive relationship, and others a negative relationship. So the literature is very contested on the direction of the effect, between the pension and labor supply employment. And then, research designs have varied in terms of where the pension receipt and or loss is studied. Identification strategies, so some have used the discontinuity design up to eligibility age. Some have used eligibility as an instrument for receipt. The definition of households, whether you include non-resident members or not, and also which complementary outcomes are examined, like household membership and other outcomes which might be affected by pension. So in this paper, we study how working age adults' labor market outcomes change in response to a loss of household income caused by a pensioner dying. This enables a well-identified examination of participation and employment responses to income loss. Well identified because I argue that a pensioner dying is a relatively exogenous event compared to other forms of income loss, which are generally difficult to study because whether it's employment loss or someone moving out of the household, those are likely to be correlated with other things which will affect your employment outcomes. And it will be the first study in this literature in SA to meaningfully study the relationship between pension income and employment outcomes over multiple periods and to examine pre-trends. So all of the previous work has been basically two waves. None of them have meaningfully used multiple periods. I'll use all 5 waves of the National Income Dynamics Study, which was a panel of individuals and their households conducted between 2008 and 2017, and also collect lots of useful information about household members, including pensioner health and all sorts of things. And very simply, the main estimate I'll use is to aggregate staggered treatment effects in an event study design is Callaway and St. Anna's difference in difference estimator. So the estimation sample is all Black, African, or colored adults aged 18 to 59 who have at least one pensioner in their household at baseline. And then basically control group is those in households where no pensioner dies by the following wave, and the treated group are those in households where a pensioner has died by the following wave. This basically just simply shows that pension income is a substantial share of household income, around a quarter or more in both untreated and treated groups. And also, I show that the pensioner death does lead to a significant reduction in household income. So this event is, does have bite. It is actually leading to a reduction in income. The groups are very similar, as you'd expect, because you're looking at people in households with a pensioner, Black, African, or colored people in households with a pensioner. So we don't see big differences at baseline. And moving to unconditional results. This is kind of the raw data, just weighted using survey weights. And yeah, you can see because you have these 5 waves, you have basically 4 periods at which you measure treatment, right? Between wave 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and so on. I can turn this into 2 by 2 different diffs, and yeah, this is for employment. So basically a 0-1 employment indicator is your outcome variable. And basically you see that it looks like there's this general relative upward trend for the treatment group relative to the control group. And this is not restricted to the period after treatment, but basically it looks like they're on a different trend, right? The employment is increasing for the treated group more than the control group. And when you aggregate this using Callaway and Santana and CSTID, you find a similar thing, but it's not a very strong effect, right? It's not significant except for, interestingly, at 2 periods before baseline. And whether that can credibly be an anticipation effect, given that it's up to 4 or 5 years before the pensioner dies, is something to think about, right? But the direction, does seem clear. For labor force participation, on the other hand, you don't see any result, really. It's pretty much just noise. And yeah, very briefly, some heterogeneity. This is all for employment. This general upward trend is greater for youth. It's, again, stronger for males than females, it looks like, except for that -2 period. Much stronger in urban areas than in rural areas. And then this is interesting in terms of heterogeneity by outcome. You see on the formal employment margin, there's much more pronounced effects with the treatment group on a kind of longer-term more positive trend. So this analysis raises concerns about the validity, of course, of the no anticipation and parallel trends assumptions. So very quickly, I'll go through some conditional analysis. And yeah, NIDS has a range of variables which you can use to predict treatment. So pensioner health, symptoms, whether they've been diagnosed with all sorts of health conditions. And also which can model employment outcomes over time. So individuals, education, and age, etc. So basically you can do regression adjustment or inverse probability weighting or some combination of the two. This just shows that inverse probability weighting does make groups more comparable. You find that, they're more similar. But this slightly exacerbates differences in pre-trains. And no matter what different specifications, I haven't kind of gotten rid of that. I haven't tried synthetic control yet, but I don't know if it's a good idea. And then some other analysis that I do. Basically, treatment is not correlated with the probability of attrition. There's that worry that if you're more likely to try it or to leave a household in the survey after a pensioner dies. The treated are also not more likely to be movers, either before or after treatment. And if they were moving into households, then they might have a different kind of employment trajectory. Likewise afterwards. The share of people who are not employed because they are taking care of children and or elderly or disabled family members jumps for the treated group just before treatment, so in that period just before, which kind of adds to the puzzle of how you would also be seeing kind of more positive employment increases in that period. And then very briefly, I follow Abel in using the death of a non-income receiving older adult, aged 50 to 59, kind of as a placebo to separate household income loss effects from other concomitant effects. So around the trauma of a death in the family, also endowments and inheritances, and funeral costs. And this just shows that on the right column is the placebo, so a 50 to 59-year-old death, and you no longer see this kind of longer-term pre-positive trend, but you do see more positive post-period effects. Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this was to isolate the income effect. So if you took this at face value, this would suggest that the income effect may actually be negative. But yeah, there's a lot more to unpack there. Okay, I've got 1 minute, so very briefly. I think overall, the evidence does not support any clear effect of pensioner death on either labor force participation or employment. There's potentially some longer-term relative increases in the employment margin, but these appear to be more pronounced in the period before a pensioner dies rather than after. And heterogeneity in responses appears to be important, right? It's driven by prime age individuals in urban areas and on the formal employment margin only, what effect we do observe. The variability in aggregate responses after pension loss raises doubts about the generalizability of previous studies. And yeah, I think our examination of pre-trains revealed issues with interpreting differences at the time of pension loss as treatment effects. Pension gain and loss might not be symmetrical, so it's worth doing this for gain as well, I think. And yeah, there's methodological implications for their existing work. I think this sums up the implications for existing research. So in the top left corner, you see that circle. If you just look at that, you get an ATT of 0.134, which is very close to what Abel got in a more kind of full regression specification. And his study was very well done. He did the best he could with what he did. But if you just look at much more data, you see how ungeneralizable what he did. That kind of difference between the groups is one of many differences in different directions across multiple periods. It doesn't look generalizable, even within the same survey with the same data generating process. And if you don't look at parallel trains or pre-trains at all, it's very hard to say that, oh, that is the result of this pensioner dying, basically. Yeah, so I'm currently extending this analysis, the third point, using panel periods from the general household survey. I think, these results, there's some magnitude there, but the precision is insufficiently high. So if you do it with bigger data and a different data source, how does that look? And further work in the PhD will look at how employment responses vary depending on local labor market conditions. So more kind of bringing in measures of labor demand and seeing how that affects this response. Cool, thank you.
Questions?
So this is super cool, and I really like the idea of looking at potential asymmetries between the effect of gaining access to a pension and losing access to a pension, because that should be very helpful in telling us what the underlying labor market model is. In particular, these kind of stories where you need an exogenous dose of capital in order to finance job search or in order to stock a small enterprise should predict an asymmetric effect. There should be no effect of losing pension eligibility once you've gotten onto those. So I think doing that analysis would be really helpful. And what might be helpful there is also looking at kind of what are the impacts on employment for people who are in different types of employment relationships. So we know, for example, there's a lot of shift between informal employment and non-employment in South Africa. And so we might expect, like, if you see people dropping out of informal employment upon loss of a pension income, that's a very different story to they drop out of formal employment. The drop out of formal employment might be something more about, like, childcare, for example, rather than a kind of labor market liquidity story.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabriel. It's great to see you present some of this. I wondered how you're dealing with the fact, or if it matters, I'm sure it must, that NIDS is following individuals, not households, right? So during times of crisis, people can move between households, households can, change composition quite dramatically. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think the strength and weakness in some ways, but the strength of NIDS is that it follows individuals over time, right? At least your continuing sample members from wave one. So basically how I'm dealing with that is just saying that I'm looking at whether you live with that pensioner at that baseline period just before treatment. And then if whatever happens after that, we follow you, the individual. So you may not be living with the pensioner afterwards, even if they're alive. Even if the pensioner's still alive, you may not be living with them afterwards, but we just follow your outcomes over time, right? So in a way, that's an advantage because you're not just losing people just because they're no longer living with the pensioner. The other way of doing it is quite complex because, as I've spoken about with Amy and others, what your conceptual definition of a household is, which persists over time, is it's a wormhole to get into, and I don't think there's any perfect way to do that. So basically, I'm following the individuals.
I'm a little bit far from this literature. Can you explain to me why I would expect actually the job market, the status of other members would change because a pensioner dies? Because the income is already very low. It's like 2,000 per month. So if I'm not looking for a job, it should be for other reasons, not because that money is enough. I would expect the effect on consumption or nutrition or other variables at the household instead of a labor market status.
Yeah, so I mean, for time I didn't go through the other outcomes that people have looked at, but people have looked at child health and nutrition. But I mean, this pension is actually a substantial amount in South Africa. 2,000 Rand is quite a lot. It's far above a median per capita household income, and there's lots of evidence of unemployed people moving into households of pensioners. So it is significant, I think. I mean, whether that's enough for people to stop looking for work, that I'm not sure. Yeah, yeah.
That's really great. Thank you.